The competition in racing is tough. If you have good engineers, you can evaluate with the teams and the brands how to improve the performance. Last year, we won Daytona 24 hours. We were working for that during 2 years, improving and working closely with the good teams, the good companies. And it's something that you need to work like a team, and it's very difficult.
Welcome to Coffee Break, the official podcast of the Brake Report. Here we dive deep into the world of brake technology, bringing you exclusive interviews with industry leaders and insights into the companies shaping our future. Let's get started. Luis, you have a really interesting background. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your history in racing and what led to your role at PFC Brakes?
I started racing motorcycles when I was young. I was European champion in 1992. Then I passed to the World Championship during the next 3 seasons, 93, 94, 95. I won several Spanish championships also as motorcycle rider. And to me, this is a good start to be in motorsport. And after, when I was like 27, 28 years old, I started working. When I retired from my motorcycle career, I started working in brakes because it's one of the fields I have more experience. And
when you were younger and starting out in racing, what drew you to motorcycles versus karting or other type racing, or did you do them all?
I started motorcycles because it's the world I love. When I stopped racing motorcycles, I started racing cars. In my first job with the other company, I did a lot of tests of racing components and I did a lot of championships racing cars. So I get a lot of experience testing brakes, which is good for today.
Sure. And going back to your days in racing, when you were riding, how did you define a good brake system versus a great one? Was it pure feel, looking at data? What led you to say, these are the brakes I need to have?
Motorcycles and cars are different, of course. In motorcycle, you need to have a lot of confidence because you have only one front wheel. When you are pushing only in the front wheel in the car, there are two wheels. It's very different, no? In the motorcycle, the release is very important. In the car, the real power release. There are many factors in the car. In the car, of course, depending on the race, because you have races of endurance races, cars with ABS, so it's very different. But we can say 3-4 factors that are very important. The first is the initial bite, when you get this good feeling that you can overtake or not. Is the second part, the rear retardation. So if you can stop the car in this distance, that can give you the opportunity to overtake or have a good lap time. And the release it means if you have a not aggressive and the modulation is enough good in the last part of the brake section. And of course, there are another parameters like the disc condition, wearing. There are many factors. So you need to be good in many different factors to produce a good racing.
In your current role as Director of Motorsports for PFC Brakes, do you find that your background in racing helps influence how you lead the business? Does it sometimes hinder your work because you know too many details?
To be in racing give me a lot of help because I know people from this world. Motorsport is not it's big, but you meet a lot of people during many years work with. We are many people that are working in motorsport during 30, 40 years. No, you can find people that work with you as a mechanic or engineer, and that's important. You speak the same language. In motorsport, to understand these parameters is very, very important. And honestly, this helped me a lot in the work I am doing today.
PFC Brakes, it seems like extreme performance is at the heart of the company. You know, even starting with like the OE side, you know, PFC doesn't necessarily make brakes for the minivan or the family sedan. One example would be OE brakes for police or pursuit vehicles, which I would assume that there's a lot of challenges or maybe some different approaches you have to take with designing and supplying brakes for those type vehicles than you do for other past cars. Is there specific challenges that you're having to help the OEs make when supplying these brakes?
There are very different sectors. The OE is very important to have good comfort. You need a brake that works for everybody, from a person that is very old to a person that loves to be fast with the car. Everybody needs to handle this brake. And in the competition is a little bit different. But the experience you get making racing brakes helps you a lot for the other sector. but it's different but helpful.
In the severe duty, and you also supply brakes for buses too, like school buses,
Yes.
which I guess most the average person wouldn't consider a school bus as a performance vehicle, but obviously they're large, they're heavy, they have to stop safely quite a bit. Is there any challenges with that as far as making or supplying brakes for the school bus?
You need to understand that for a school bus, they need to be very quiet. They need to be very friendly. The release need to be perfect. It's different parameters, and you need to understand that. For example, with the police, we are supplying brakes for the police, and is more close to the racing sector. But for the school bus, is something completely different. But in PFC, we are supplying for OE, for the police, for different segments.
Looking through my notes on an example on the aftermarket side where you guys have helped with solving just everyday problems would be like the Tahoe police vehicle issue. Can you speak more to that?
Sometimes when you supply a little bit better brake in terms of performance, then you are getting problems with the noise, no? But we work a lot to have a quiet brake, especially for the aftermarket, because in the aftermarket, the noise is very important, no? Sometimes the balance between the performance and the safe, quiet brake in terms of release and noise is difficult to have this, to handle that, no? But we play with the underlayers, we play with many different factors, geometry of the path that can handle that. No,
This episode is brought to you by Hagman Search. When it comes to finding top-tier talent for your executive team, Hagman Search is a name you can trust. Not simply a recruiting firm, it's your strategic partner. Go to hagmansearch.com to learn more. I guess switching now into the racing side. So what percentage of racing makes up PFC's business? Is it a large portion of the business? Is it a small piece? What's the size of the business for PFC?
yeah, actually, the race business is close to 40% of the company,
Wow.
which is high. No, before we were like 33 OE, 33 aftermarket, and 33 the race business. But today we increase a lot in racing. I think it's good because margins in racing are better, but the volumes are less. So you cannot be only focusing one of the sectors because today racing is very good. I don't know in 3 4 years, especially Marianne will think about that. She doesn't like to be only in the racing market, and we need to give the three markets. This is very important.
Yeah. From the racing perspective, can you take a deeper dive into who some of your customers are and who you supply to on the racing side?
I think we are one of the leaders because we supply IndyCar, which is a very, very important championship, not only in America, around the world. Also, we supply 14 more championships in single seaters, since many Formula 4 championships like UK, Spain, Brazil, and others, Formula 3, UK, Spain, Middle East, Europe, and of course, all the different championships, single seaters in the USA are with PFC brakes. But also, we supply during many years Porsche, actually Ferrari, Ford, many different manufacturers.
Using your background in racing and now with your involvement with PFC Brakes, what's it take to be a go-to supplier in this segment? I'm assuming there's a lot of boxes to check to be qualified to be a top supplier.
Competition in racing is. I remember when I started as director of Global Motorsport in the company, we was not in a lot of cars in Daytona, but did a great job with the brands. Engineers are very important because good engineers can evaluate with the teams how to improve performance. No, this is the most important. Last year we won Daytona 24 hours, but we were working for that during 2 years, improving and working with the good teams, the good companies, and then you need to have not only involved the team, the company, even ABS supplier, because the ABS is important in the GT racing. It's something you need to work like a team, and it's very difficult.
Do you see any challenges if you supply, maybe some of your customers are competitors in the racing side, they compete against each other potentially, and you're supplying brakes. Are there any challenges to overcome there? Is that a difficult situation?
Difficult situation, but if we are doing a good job, you can go ahead and you continue progressing. And I don't think it will be a difficult situation.
You supply more than just brake pads. You can supply the entire system, pads, rotors, calipers. Is it important to supply the entire package versus just one component?
It's very important. If you are only supplying the brake pad, Porsche, Ferrari can ask, what's happening with the brake pad? And then ask to the brake caliper manufacturer that is, no, that's a problem of the brake pad. You supply the complete package is much better. For this reason, many manufacturers prefer to have only one supplier, and this is why in the past decides to make their own calipers and their own brake pads. And the brake pads is the initial core business of the company, but also the rotors. It's important to have a very good experience in the three of them. No, what the company PFC Brakes is doing very special. The brake calipers are very special because we have insulators. The pistons are made in house. The springs. So we produce all the different parts of the caliper in house, which is very important. With the rotors, we don't produce the castings, but we have a specific formula for the castings with our metallurgy, our design, our machining. Everything is PFC. And with the brake pads, of course, the same.
I guess looking ahead, Indy 500 for 2026, you all will be supplying the brake system for that. That seems like a very demanding race. Is there anything challenging about that compared to others?
We are the supplier of the IndyCar since 2017. And we have an agreement until the 2030. So we are working now in this Indy 500 brake package because the Indy 500 is a very special race. You are in a very high speed with a crowd of 420,000. You don't touch the brakes, and then you need to touch the brakes when you are pitting. So sometimes they are using the pad retraction. They need to pump up the brakes, and the drivers simply forgot, because it's with the pressure you have one driver behind you trying to overtake you. And now we are making a specific brake package to avoid this problem, not to have a very short pedal and to avoid the long pedal when you are pitting, and to avoid especially this problem. But we are having a good test during winter, and we introduce a new brake package for 2026, and we are happy of the results.
We've covered motorcycles, school buses, police vehicles, IndyCar. That's a diverse mix of vehicles and braking. Is there one common trait or one common principle that PFC has that has to rely on to be able to successfully, ship and produce all these products?
We are not a very big company compared with the big manufacturers, but the people, engineers, production is really involved on that. So we have a very enthusiastic people, and the know-how inside the company is very, very high. When I arrived my first time to PFC, I said, they do very different things than other manufacturers. How they produce the brake pads, the time they spend, how they press, the heat treats is very different than other brake pads. And that we are different, we are alive, and with a good future.
Well, Luis, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed catching up with you and talking about PFC Brakes and the severe duty and racing side of the business. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
This is Brian Hagman, host of Coffee Break. I want to give a big thank you to today's guest and to all of you for tuning in. Until next time, let's keep breaking stuff.